Good evening, I'm Laura Jones, host of New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. In just a few minutes, we will begin the first debate between the candidates for the Democratic nomination for U.S. Senate between Congressman Andy Kim and First Lady Tammy Murphy. The winner of June's primary election will go on to compete in November's general election for the seat currently held by Senator Bob Menendez. This 90-minute debate is presented by On New Jersey, the New Jersey Globe, and the Rebovich Institute for New Jersey Politics at Rider University. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to make an opening statement. After that, our panel will ask a series of questions related to national and state issues and the campaign for U.S. Senate. We realize that for any number of these topics covered tonight, we could easily dedicate an entire debate to. But in the interest in covering as many topics as possible, we will keep the conversation moving along with our timeline. Respectfully, I ask both candidates to stick to their allotted time. If the candidate goes on too long, I'm going to hold up my hand. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to interrupt. And I've got a bell, and I'm not afraid to use it. The questions are coming from David Wildstein of the New Jersey Globe, Micah Rasmussen of the Rebovich Institute for New Jersey Politics at Rider University, and Joey Fox of the New Jersey Globe. Questions will alternate between the two candidates. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer and 1 minute to respond. If a candidate is attacked during the response, his or her opponent will receive an additional 30 seconds to respond. I reserve the option of a follow-up question before moving on. My job is to be the moderator, not to take sides, not to give my opinion. So I'll moderate and keep this debate on course. I'm going to look to each candidate to make sure what their opponent says is based in fact. Each candidate will also have a chance to ask their opponent one question. Candidates will have 30 seconds to ask that question, and their opponent will have 60 seconds to answer, and the other gets 30 seconds to respond. Candidates will then have 90 seconds for a closing statement. We conducted a virtual coin toss before the start of the debate. The winner of that coin toss is Andy Kim, so he will have the first statement. New Jersey debate night is getting started, so stay with us. Here's a look now at both candidates' launch videos.
This is how most of New Jersey got to know me, as Mrs. Murphy, the First Lady. And serving in this role is the honor of my life. But more about that later. My story starts back when my name was Tammy Snyder, daughter to Ed and Jean, rambunctious baby sister to 4 older siblings. Growing up, my parents taught me the importance of education, service to others, and hard work. So that's what I did. I studied, I volunteered, and I worked. After college, I went into business like my dad and started a career in finance. A lot of times, I was the only woman at the table, a challenge that led me to work twice as hard. And my business career took off, literally. I worked for companies all around the world. My career is also how I met a handsome man named Phil. Look at all that hair. We fell in love and got married, and that would start my next adventure, being a mom. See, I've been through this 4 times, and I have 4 wonderful kids to show for it: Josh, Emma, Charlie, and Sam. And when I was pregnant, and even after they were born, I worried about a million things like all moms do. But I never worried if I'd survive childbirth, or if my babies would get the care they needed. I didn't have to. The money in our family's bank account, and frankly, the color of my skin, meant I could get the best care available. But that's not the case for a lot of women. So when I got here, I realized I had a platform to help moms who aren't nearly as fortunate as I am. In New Jersey, women and babies were dying at a higher rate than almost every other state in the country, almost exclusively in our Black and brown communities. So even though I knew this would be a tough fight, I got to work.
Well, improving maternal health is a nationwide issue. In New Jersey, First Lady Tammy Murphy has been leading the charge there.
First Lady Tammy Murphy has made that issue her focus through the Nurture NJ program. First Lady Tammy Murphy is on a mission to reduce New Jersey's maternal mortality.
In just 3 years, the state has gone from ranking 47th in maternal deaths now to 29th.
We've got a long way to go, but we've made real progress on this initiative and so many others. And I'm really proud that New Jersey is now a safer place to give birth to a child. But we've also worked nonstop to make it a great place to raise a child. And that's why combating climate change has been a focus of mine for decades, because the environment our kids grow up in can be the difference in childhood asthma, cancer rates, and so many other things. It's why, as First Lady, I've led the charge to put climate on the curriculum in our schools, making New Jersey the first and only state in the nation to do so. Because teaching our kids about climate change can make a difference in their ability to succeed in our new green economy.
New Jersey students are learning all about climate change, whether in kindergarten, middle, or high school.
The woman spearheading this is the First Lady of New Jersey, aiming to give every student the tools and knowledge to combat climate change.
I am so proud of everything we've accomplished, but I know there's a lot more to do. And that's why I'm announcing this. I'm running for the United States Senate because we owe it to our kids to do better. Right now, Washington is filled with too many people more interested in getting rich or getting on camera than getting things done for you. From gun violence and mass shootings to a warming planet that threatens our children's future, to extreme politicians who want to defund Planned Parenthood and ban abortion in all 50 states, including New Jersey. We have big, complicated issues, and solving them won't be easy. But you know what? Nothing worth doing ever is. I'm Tammy Murphy, and I'm ready to work every single day in the United States Senate for you, your family, and our country. Join us.
Here we go.
Hi, how are you?
Did you go for
I'm
your
Andy.
seat?
Yes, thanks for coming on in. Hey, nice to meet you too. Thanks for being a part of this. Hey, pleased to meet you. Nice to meet you too. You just grab a seat anywhere.
This is so low.
They are a little low, right? I'm a short guy, so I try to bring it up a little bit. Let me get mine to a good spot. I guess I just want to start big picture here. Just ask you all, like, how are you feeling about things in this country right now?
There's so much on my mind.
Yeah.
It's like hard to pick one. I mean, you can go from women's rights to what's happening in the Middle East right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, the world is pretty scary.
What else is on your minds?
It's almost impossible now to live comfortably in New Jersey if you don't have a very high-paying job.
I am from New York, and I am an implant in New Jersey. So yes, I am one of those people. And I'm still like, wait a minute, hold on. I moved from New York to New Jersey to find more money in my budget, but I'm still cutting back.
I have 2 kids to send to college, so I'm wondering, maybe I won't be able to retire, or there's not enough Social Security funding left for me.
I got a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old, 2 little boys, 1st grader, 3rd grader. And I worry about that. I'm just like, what in the world is education gonna cost, college gonna cost when they're teenagers? Exactly. What went through your mind when you heard about sort of the most recent indictment upon Senator Menendez?
Well, not just that. How many people from New Jersey get in trouble? We're known for...
Right. But I wasn't surprised by it at all, because I feel like there's a lot of corruption in
New Jersey
in politics.
How did that make you feel when you saw that?
Like a New Jerseyan.
I'm someone that's in politics now, but this is not where I came from. I was a diplomat in national security before. I served out in Afghanistan. I was at the Pentagon. For me, being in public service demands at the highest of standards. And so that's what kind of pushed me. I mean, after he said that he's not resigning, that's when I decided to step up and challenge him. So I am now currently running to be the next United States Senator from New Jersey. And I'll be honest with you, I did not plan for this, but I think I just kind of hit a breaking point. And I feel the same frustration that all of you do about just how entrenched it is, and it just feels like this is just how it is, right? I believe that the opposite of democracy is apathy. It's if you give up, right?
Appreciate your authenticity. You give off this impression that he's sincere, he's honest. I can trust this guy.
I think it's really cool that you're coming and meeting people and want to know what Joseph thinks. Nobody cares about what I say. That's nice.
So I think it's refreshing to find somebody that is willing to go to battle to try to make change. It's good.
Like Don Quixote.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully more successful.
Yeah. Way more successful than that.
It's your kids are really little. Why do you want to do this?
I want to do it for them.
What about your family?
Yeah, I mean, it's
I'm being really honest with you.
Look, I appreciate your honesty. I mean, like, here's what I'll say is that I look at all the craziness in the world and I look at this and I just say, like, I don't want my kids to grow up in a broken America. Like, I don't want my kids to have to experience this, you know, and so, like.
So you think you can make a change?
Yeah, I do.
Hello and welcome to New Jersey Debate Night. I'm Laura Jones, and this is the first New Jersey Senate debate presented by the New Jersey Globe on New Jersey and Rider University between Democrats Andy Kim and Tammy Murphy. The incumbent, Bob Menendez, was invited to participate contingent on his being an announced candidate. He did not respond. Our panelists are David Wildstein and Joey Fox of the New Jersey Globe and Micah Rasmussen, Director of the Rebovich Institute for New Jersey Politics at Rider University. We've gone over the rules of the debate prior to airtime. We've also established the order of questions and responses, which will alternate between the two candidates. A coin toss was conducted earlier, and that was won by Andy Kim. Mr. Kim opted for the first opening statement and first closing statement. Mr. Kim, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining. I'm Andy Kim. And as I'm talking to you right now, I can hear my two little boys getting ready for bed. And it reminds me that they are the reason I do all of this, all of the work that I do. It is 50 years ago that my parents immigrated to the United States, and they came here because America meant something to them. It was about opportunity and security. And I'll be honest with you, that's all I really want for my kids too. But that vision of America is under attack right now by Donald Trump, by the MAGA Republicans in Congress that I've been fighting against for the last 5 years, and we have to stop them. I know how to beat Trump. I'm a Democrat that won a district Trump won twice. It's about restoring integrity. It's about trust. It's about public service. But that gets at risk when we have a senator who is indicted on corruption. And now we're seeing the same broken politics that protected the senator for so many years, now trying to put its thumb on the scale of our elections, including on this Senate race. We're better than that. I was with President Biden when he gave his January 6th speech, and there was a line that he said that just stuck out to me, where he said, "We know who Donald Trump is, but who are we?" I believe the Democratic Party is a party of protecting democracy, about restoring integrity, about giving true meaning to what public service is. And that's what I'm trying to do right now as I'm running for the United States Senate. Thank you.
Mr. Kim, thank you. Mrs. Murphy, your opening statement.
Good evening. I'm Tammy Murphy, and I'm running for the United States Senate because I'm deeply concerned about the world that we are handing off to the next generation. As a mother of 4, I see the world through their eyes. Our children are losing faith in us, rightfully so. Little girls are growing up with less rights than I had. Fire drills have been replaced by active shooter drills. And if we don't do something right now about climate change, parts of New Jersey will be completely underwater in 20 years. I won't stand by watching as the world gets worse for our kids. I've spent the last 7 years traveling our state, listening to families in all 21 counties. We need a senator who recognizes the heavy burden on middle-class families and will fight for New Jersey taxpayers. We need a senator who will be a champion for women and girls and will stop the extreme right wing
working to ban abortion in all 50 states. We need a senator who is finally going to be tough enough to stand up to the gun lobby and care more about our children dying every day than winning their reelection. From combating climate change to defending our democracy, the list of threats goes on. But it comes down to this. We need more ticked-off moms in Washington and more Jersey grit to get things done. From improving New Jersey's infant and maternal mortality rates to spearheading nation-leading climate change education in our K-12 schools, I've tackled big problems my entire career, often as the only woman in the room. I'm running for the U.S. Senate not to advance my career, but because we urgently need a new voice, vision, and leadership in Washington. Thank you.
Thank you both. And we now go on to our panel and our first question, which comes from David Wildstein. David, you have a question for Tammy Murphy.
Mr. Murphy, why shouldn't Andy Kim be a U.S. Senator? What vote or statement or action or position has he taken that you disagree with him on?
Thank you so much, David, and thank you to everybody for having me here this evening. I would just tell you why I think I should be running for the United States Senate. I've spent a portion of my life working on Wall Street. I worked internationally in finance. I have lived overseas for 15 years of my life, seeing our country through a foreign lens, and I have helped to represent our country at the highest levels. I would tell you that here in New Jersey, for the past 6+ years, I've seen the real hopes, the dreams, and the concerns of people in New Jersey. And I've tackled some of the big challenges like infant and maternal health. And I would tell you that over the course of that, I've worked with advocates, with legislators, and I've helped pass over 60 pieces of legislation at this point in time. We need a ticked off mom to fight for our state in Washington, D.C., and we need to make sure that we are setting the table and showing future generations what they should aspire to. Thank you.
Mr. Kim, you have 1 minute for your response.
Yeah, thank you. What I'll say is that I'm running for the United States Senate because I have been a public servant my entire career. I have served this nation every minute of my career, and I hope to serve this nation with honor and integrity for every minute of the rest of my career. I have served as a diplomat in national security. I served this country out in war zones, and I served this country now as a 3-term member of Congress. I am the Democrat that can guarantee a win this November as someone who has won a district Trump won. Between the two of us, I'm the only person here that has run and won an election. And I think that that's important. Right now, the Senate majority is razor thin. We cannot let this seat go vulnerable. We cannot allow the Republicans to have any chance at passing a national abortion ban, any challenges of that nature. And right now, the world is on fire. There's so much conflict and crisis that's out there. I will be ready day one for being able to step up and be able to tackle these issues and be able to give New Jersey a voice in the Senate.
Thank you. Now, Micah Rasmussen, we go over to you, and you have a question for Andy Kim.
Yes, the biggest flashpoint in the race so far has been county organization lines. There's been talk lately about the potential for sharing some of them. Of course, neither one of you would gain by sharing the lines that you're expected to win anyway, but you could gain in counties where you're not. So is this something that you would do on your own, or would it require a global agreement by both of you?
Yeah, thank you for this. I believe in a democracy about fairness, about making sure that every citizen has the right to be able to participate. And if they decide to run for office, that is something that they can take on. And it's not just for the well-off or the well-connected to be able to do that. Right now, we don't see a fair process when it comes to this Senate race. And that's something that I see, I know a lot of people across New Jersey see, and that's a real problem. And I think that New Jersey should move in the direction of every other state in America, which is an office block ballot. All 49 other states do this. It's a way that we can be fair, way that we can make sure that people's merits and their experience is what people are doing in terms of thinking about who to vote for. When it comes to what you talked about, your proposal of sharing lines, if we can come to agreement, and I asked Tammy Murphy right now, if we can have agreement on sharing the lines in all 19 counties that have a county line, we can make that agreement right now and be able to talk through this about how we can have greater fairness, but I'm going to keep fighting for that office block ballot because that's what's right.
Mrs. Murphy, to you.
Thank you. So, I would just say to you that we are all running in the same system right now. I've seen my opponents in Hunterdon County. I've seen them in Mercer County. I've seen them in Monmouth County. And we all are going to continue working within the system that we have. For me, this is just one piece of the puzzle. The fact of the matter is that I am going to earn every single vote that I get by working hard every single day and visiting and listening to people on the ground. I've been endorsed by over 100 elected representatives. I've been endorsed by 6 of the 9 members of the New Jersey Democratic Congressional Delegation. I have received endorsements from our brothers and sisters in labor. I've received endorsements from the faith community. And, most importantly, I'm on the ground, and I'm really looking forward to understanding what I can do to help the citizens I've meet. And I will continue reaching out to everyone, the youth. I'll reach out to veterans and seniors and young families and everyone. And I look forward to it. It's really fun.
We go now to Joey Fox. Did you have a follow-up, or are you on to the next question?
So I have a quick follow-up for Mrs. Murphy, which is, you said, this is the system we have. Would you rather the system be different if you had control over that?
Hi, Joey. I would say to you that we're all working within the same system, and if there are improvements to be made, then, let's have the improvements. But right now, we're in the middle of a campaign, and let's just move forward with the ground rules as we know them.
Okay, Joey, on to the next question, which is to Tammy Murphy.
Yes, so again, Mrs. Murphy. There's obviously a lot of very complex political systems within New Jersey. There are also very complex political systems within the Senate, the body you're seeking to join, like the filibuster, like the heavy focus on seniority when it comes to committee assignments and power. What reforms, if any, if you were elected, would you hope to enact in this very august body?
So, listen, first of all, with respect to the filibuster has been completely abused by the Republicans. And at this point in time, we're basically dysfunctional. I know that when the filibuster came into effect in 1917, we went along for a good while. We didn't have any filibusters, but we've now had over 2,000 filibusters. And of that, more than half have happened in the last 12 years alone. So I would absolutely support removing the filibuster. I obviously would support, there's other things that are on my platform that I support. We have to be very careful. And I want to make sure that if we can't absolutely remove the filibuster, we must make sure that we're adding more exceptions, like for gun safety and for abortion, by way of example.
Okay, Mr. Kim, over to you for your response.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is actually one of the biggest areas of disagreement that we have. And, I just listened to the First Lady talk about it. It's very different than how she's talked about it in previous times. In an interview in December, she said that she wasn't sure what she was going to do about filibuster reform. She said that she hadn't thought about it very much. And I'll be honest with you, as someone who is stepping up to run for the United States Senate, was already a declared candidate, that is perplexing to me, that someone is stepping up to run for Senate and hadn't thought about the filibuster. It is holding up so much progress. I've worked to be able to pass the Women's Health Protection Act in the House of Representatives. We passed it, but it was dead on delivery in the Senate. We have fought to be able to take bold action on climate change, and that was dead on delivery in the Senate because of the filibuster. Just over and over and over again, it is a major obstacle. And then another interview that she did just a few weeks ago, she said that the filibuster is a useful tool. That was the exact quote, useful tool. I'm not really sure what to believe, but this is something that is very concerning to me because I believe that this is a fundamental part of being a Democratic senator to be able to get the majority that we need to pass the legislation we need.
Mrs. Murphy, I will give you time to follow up on that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Let there be no doubt. I absolutely agree that we should remove the filibuster. And let me be very specific. If we cannot remove the filibuster, then we must make sure that we are adding exceptions, as has already been done. So my 2 exceptions that I would point to at the outset are we need abortion to be codified at the federal level, and we separately need to ensure that we expand our gun safety measures.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Murphy. David Wildstein, you are next, and your question goes to Andy Kim.
Said that health care is a human right, but you have not sponsored the Medicare for All Act in the House. What has stopped you from supporting a single-payer national health insurance plan?
Yeah, thank you, David. I absolutely agree we need to have universal health care. And I think that there are many different ways that we can get there. We've seen there are a lot of different countries that are out there that have gotten in that direction. So I'm open to that. I'm open to single payer. I'm open to multi-payer. I think it's important that we don't close the door on those different options. And I think that that's why I've been trying to do a methodical approach to be able to engage. Because look, let's see what it is that we actually want. We want to make sure that we have that we get rid of the for-profit system, that this is something we should not have businesses making billions of dollars off of the health and challenges that Americans are facing. And that's something that we see just deep injustice in right now. We want to make sure that we have ability to be able to negotiate drug prices and healthcare costs, and that is something that we are working on. But I've seen, continued challenges in Medicare, in the VA, and other programs, which is why I think we should be looking at different options to be able to get the universal care. But if we can do single payer, if we can do multi-payer, those are the ones that I want to make sure we push forward on.
Mrs. Murphy, now to your response. You have 1 minute.
Yeah, look, this is a complete moral failure. The status quo is not working, and healthcare is absolutely a right and not a privilege. And by not supporting Medicare for all or a public auction of some sort, what we are doing is we are furthering the inequities that exist in our society. It's really pretty much, it's a black and white situation for me. And I would further say to you that we in the United States, when I say this isn't working, not only do we have people who are using our emergency rooms for primary care physicians and attention that's clogging up our system for those who need it, but on top of that, our life expectancy is declining in the United States. So this is at an urgent level. We can't just sit back and wait and see what else is going to happen. We really need to jump in right now. And I have seen this firsthand through all the work I've been doing in infant and maternal health. So thank you. We must pass Medicare for all.
Okay, Micah Rasmussen, we go to you, and your question goes to Tammy Murphy next.
As a senator, what will you say to constituents if they ask you to oppose the Murphy administration's plan to raise New Jersey transit fares or widen the turnpike?
Listen, I am going to be absolutely a relentless fighter for dollars to support our transit system. We transport millions of people every single day all across New Jersey, and we have to make sure that our mass transit is as strong as it possibly can be. And we must, to that end, we have to make sure that we are finishing Gateway and making our state as accessible and as user-friendly as possible. And I'm really proud, I have to say, that I actually have been endorsed by the ATU. And, I've met with them. I understand what their issues are at the federal level. And I look forward to representing them and working for all of the people in New Jersey from a position in Washington, D.C.
Okay, Andy Kim, you have one minute for your response.
Yeah. Well, let me get to the heart of the problem that wasn't addressed by my opponent's comments there. The fare heights are wrong. This is the wrong move to make for New Jersey. I know so many families that take New Jersey Transit to be able to get to work, to be able to see each other. I take New Jersey Transit. My wife takes it every single day when she goes to work. This is a lifeblood of our state. And that fare increase is going to hurt the most vulnerable New Jerseyans, people that are already struggling, and they tell me that they feel like they're just getting squeezed and it's death from 1,000 cuts. This is the wrong move to make right now. And we have put a lot of federal dollars back into New Jersey through the American Rescue Plan, through the infrastructure law, through the Inflation Reduction Act, and other things like that to avoid something like this. And I'm glad my competitor talked about the Gateway Tunnel. I'm glad I was able to help deliver federal dollars to be able to push forward on that. But we also need to be investing more in terms of our public transit and encourage ridership at a time when that is so critical to the future of New Jersey. So that is something I want to keep moving on.
Okay, Joey Fox, we go to you, and your question next is for Andy Kim.
Yeah, so Congressman, you identify strongly as pro-choice. I think that that's an issue on which there is not necessarily a ton of daylight between the two candidates here. But I'm curious, given the realities of the system that we live in and the Congress that we have and the Supreme Court that we have, what would you concretely do in the Senate to protect a right to abortion, to protect reproductive health access?
I really believe that this issue about women's reproductive rights is one of the defining challenges of our time. It's something that we absolutely have to be able to focus on. And I'm hearing at the top of the list of pretty much every voter that I'm talking to. I'm proud that I was able to help pass the Women's Health Protection Act out of the House of Representatives, but it died on delivery in the Senate. And we just see the necessity, absolute necessity, to have strong leadership in the Senate, ready to go day one to be able to pass the filibuster changes that we need to be able to get this passed through. So being able to do that is key. But it's not just that, it's about the work that I've done to be able to vote on ensuring that women can be able to, in the meantime, transit to other states to be able to get abortion, to be able to have access to abortion pills, to be able to make sure that they can have this care safely. It's about the work that I've done standing up to Senator Tuberville over this past year as I've been the ranking member on the Military Personnel Subcommittee, fighting against what he's trying to do to take away reproductive rights from women who are defending our nation. So those are the things that I'll be working on ready day one in the Senate.
Tammy Murphy, over to you for your response.
Yeah, I mean, listen, abortion and codifying abortion at the federal level is urgent. I agree with my opponent in that front. I would say to you that, I have had the ability for the past 6.5 years to be on the ground working with women in this space, in infant and maternal health. And I'm incredibly proud of the progress that we've made, and I'm incredibly thrilled that we have codified Roe here in New Jersey, which is fantastic. The problem is that we are only as strong as our elected leaders. And should someone come into office who would like to repeal some of those advances, they would be able to do that. So in order that we actually ensure that our women and children are protected and we're not waiting for the next shoe to drop, we've got to codify this at the federal level. I would say to you that again, this is a fundamental right. It should be treated as such. The fact that I had this right growing up and now children are having less rights than I did is unacceptable.
Now, throughout the debate, we have guest questions for our candidates, and our first one is coming from Amal Sina, the Executive Director of the ACLU of New Jersey. Once this is finished, Tammy Murphy, you will be able to respond first.
We've witnessed an alarming rise in anti-immigrant rhetoric and policy by both Democratic and Republican politicians.
I can't hear
Some proposals would limit the rights of asylum seekers and seek deportations without due process. If you were elected, what would you do to protect immigrant families? And would you be willing to push back on members of your own party, including President Biden, if they supported anti-immigrant measures?
Tammy Murphy?
I heard nothing. We couldn't hear anything. Sorry,
we
Laura.
were unable to hear it? Okay, all right. Okay, all right. So what we can do is we can just go ahead and go on to our next round of questions. And if neither of you were able to hear it, so we will go on next then to Andy Kim. David Wildstein, you have a question for Andy Kim.
Yes, Congressman, Bob Menendez isn't here tonight. And you said this race is about taking on corruption. I should point out that 2 of the 4 men who held this Senate seat that you're seeking over the last 66 years have been accused of accepting bribes. What assurances can you make to New Jerseyans that they don't have to worry about your ethics? Will you or your representative trade in individual stocks? Will you create a qualified blind trust if you're in the United States Senate?
Yeah, thank you, David. Look, what I will say is that if elected and representing this state in the Senate, I can guarantee you and I can guarantee the people in New Jersey that you will never have to question why I serve this country, why I do what I do. I've served this country every minute of my career, as I said earlier, and that I try to do that with the sense of integrity that I try to bring about. I've been fighting against corruption since my very first day in Congress, working on the For the People Act. In fact, probably the most popular piece of legislation that I've introduced in Congress right now is a legislation that would ban members of Congress from owning and trading individual stocks. I do not own any individual stocks. That is something that I live to this day. I don't take corporate PAC money. These are the ways in which I try to be able to live and walk the walk in that way. And again, that's something that's different than my competitor here, who has a blind trust that's operated by her brother, something that I don't think really passes the smell test for a lot of people. So I hope to be able to be someone who can show that integrity with the work that I do.
Okay, Tammy Murphy, we go to you now for your response.
Yes. So what I would say to you is that I will be absolutely above reproach. When my husband was elected, we voluntarily put my brother in charge of a blind trust so that there would be no question for the people of New Jersey that he was completely focused on just the people of New Jersey and not his own self advancement. I think that the stock trade ban is just common sense. It makes exactly no sense to have someone go into one room and buy a stock and then go into another room and decide how that industry and how that stock might be impacted. And so there is no question on that front. I would also say that I clearly will be well within the law, if not beyond reproach, and I will make sure that I am showing the people of New Jersey that I am totally focused only on the people of New Jersey and not myself.
All right, we're going to continue to work on the auto issue from our guest questions, but in the meantime, we're going to continue on with our panel. Micah Rasmussen is next, and your question will go to Tammy Murphy.
Is it relevant or irrelevant whether a Democratic candidate supported Republican campaigns or was a registered Republican 10 years ago?
That's for me. I would say that it is irrelevant. And I would tell you, for me, I grew up in a small business household. My family were moderate conservatives. And so I grew up in a kind of an apolitical household, but I was always focused on gun safety, on reproductive freedoms, on education, on the environment. Nothing has changed. I have continued over time to try and find people who I could support, who actually prioritize those topics as well. And with respect to the Republican Party left me. There was no road left. But I would tell you that I will stand really strongly for all of these issues. My opponent did actually flaunt the fact that he worked for the Bush administration, and he did work for a very anti-choice Republican senator when he was running initially. And so I think it's just an interesting space.
Okay, we now go over to Mr. Kim for your response.
It's so important for the voters to know, especially Democratic voters, to know if they can trust their candidate and they're in the Senate to be able to take the right votes. You know, I'm someone who represented a district Trump won twice, and I voted to impeach him twice. I voted to do a lot of legislation that people can tell that I was putting what's best for the country ahead of what's best for my career. I worry about, honestly, the record of the First Lady. Not only was she a registered Republican voting in every single Republican primary through the Obama administration, but she donated 6 figures worth of donations to Republican candidates and institutions over time. I don't feel confident in terms of what her positions are, and I think that that's deeply concerning when we see that she donated thousands of dollars to George W. Bush, who then appointed Justice Alito. We see George H.W. Bush, who appointed Clarence Thomas. These are major concerns that Democratic voters have, and the First Lady needs to answer for that.
Yeah, and Tammy Murphy, we give you 30 seconds for a rebuttal on that.
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, let me say this. The first person I ever gave any political contribution to was Bill Bradley. And you will see, if you look at any donations I've made, I've given significantly more to Democrats over time than others. But importantly, I've spent the last really 10 years helping to build up the Democratic Party. And I've done it here in New Jersey serially. I've gone to every single county whenever asked. I've acted as a surrogate. I've knocked on doors. I've gotten out the vote. I've done canvas lunches. I've done it, and I will continue to do it. And I've helped to build up our party, and I will continue to be there going forward.
Okay, we go over to Joey Fox, and your question is for Andy Kim.
Yeah, so Congressman, my last question was about abortion, what you might accomplish in the Senate on that. I think I have basically the same question on the issue of gun control. Both of you identify very much as people who would like to see more gun control out there, who would like to see more gun safety legislation. What would you concretely do to accomplish that?
I will continue to do what I've done in the House of Representatives, which is take on this issue full force. I was proud to be able to vote for universal background checks for gun safety, for us to be able to, I voted on the assault weapons ban. I helped vote on and pass into law the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, which happened in the aftermath of the horrible massacre in Uvalde. This is a horrific problem that we face as a country. And I say that as someone who's a father to a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old who come home and talk about the bad guy drills that they have to do and other things that we face. This is a unique problem to the United States, and one that we know how to solve. We know how to be able to take on the steps to be able to close these loopholes, to be able to get these guns off the streets and be able to have safer communities. So I will champion that legislation in the Senate. I will have the filibuster reform if we're able to be able to get this passed into law and actually be able to deliver for my family, for all of our families.
Okay, and Tammy Murphy, over to you for your response.
Thank you. I would just say this. Guns are the leading cause of death for our children in the United States. There is an urgent need to do something here. New Jersey is in a great place. We're one of 2 states in the country that has an A from the Giffords Law Center, and we have very common sense gun safety measures on our books, which is fantastic. The problem is that our borders are porous, and if anyone should choose to fill a truck with any kind of weapons and drive right into one of our communities, we would be defenseless. So in order for us to truly feel that we are safe in our communities, this has got to be taken up to the federal level. I agree. Stronger background checks, red flag laws, don't allow guns into the hands of people who have been convicted of domestic violence, and assault weapons ban, of course. But I would further say to you, the whole conversation needs to shift. In the United States right now, we're not going to be able to take someone's gun away and have them accept that. This is a health epidemic. It has to be treated as such, and that is the way I would tackle it.
Okay, thank you. And now we go to David Wildstein with a question for Tammy Murphy.
The Israel-Hamas war in Gaza is now in its 5th month. Who do you believe is responsible for starting this conflict, and what conditions, if any, should be made in exchange for a ceasefire?
Now, listen, I am the proud daughter of a Jewish father. I've been to Israel 9 times. I've even been to one of the kibbutzes that was overtaken on October 7th. I've also been to Ramallah. And I would tell you that what has happened on October 7th and the aftermath is a complete and utter atrocity. The humanitarian situation on the ground is beyond horrific, and we all are seeing it unfolding on a daily basis. In my opinion, the political diplomacy that is being pursued right now by Bill Burns and Jake Sullivan is absolutely the best and only path forward to getting us on the other side of this challenge. The fastest way to find a solution would be to release the hostages. But we ultimately need to get to a 2-state solution. At the end of the day, though, we have to think about New Jersey, and I go back every time to think about the Alexanders and their son, Adon, who is a hostage right now. I've met the Alexanders multiple times, and we have got to stand up for Adon.
Okay, and Mr. Kim, your response.
This is as someone who's worked in national security and diplomacy, this is just about the most difficult situation I've ever seen. I've worked out in combat zones. I've seen a lot of challenges in war zones, but this is really horrific. what we saw on October 7th was beyond anything that I had imagined would occur there. And the families of the hostages that I've had a chance to be able to meet, I've promised them that we would do everything we can to be able to get their loved ones home. If we're trying to figure out and we're trying to figure out how to be able to bring this violence to a close, we have to have the hostages released. We have to have the kind of humanitarian assistance needed. That kind of agreement is something that I think we need to be pushing on even harder. I sat down with Secretary of State Tony Blinken about 2 weeks ago and talked this through, and there is effort to be able to do that underway. I've talked to a number of leaders and officials in Israel and through Middle East countries talking about this moment. I do think that there's a chance here for us to be able to find that bilateral ceasefire, to be able to bring this violence to a close and get the hostages out of there.
Okay, thank you. Micah Rasmussen, you are up, and your question goes to Andy Kim.
With the shocking murder of Navalny following last week's defeat of the border and security supplemental, what are the prospects for timely congressional authorization for aid to Ukraine in its stand against Russia while it is most urgently needed? And what's at stake in being able to compromise on elements of the agreement that both you and Mrs. Murphy have both expressed concerns about?
Well, right now, it is absolutely urgent for us to be able to pass the aid for Ukraine. This is about the defense of a democracy, about standing up against a brutal dictator who is an adversary of the United States. Our ability to be able to stop Putin and be able to deliver a devastating blow to his military without risking our own troops is something that is in our national interest. And I have to say, it has been so frustrating to work alongside such cowards in the United States Congress, these Republicans that are jeopardizing our national security just so that they can play politics with this and be a sympathizer to Trump and a sympathizer to Putin. So yes, we absolutely need to get that legislation passed to be able to get the support out there to make sure that we are living up to what is America's responsibilities as a global leader. I still believe in America that is about defending democracies, about protecting people, and that is something that we need to do, and I hope to be able to pass it through the House as soon as we can.
Tammy Murphy, your response.
Yes, well, we have one of the largest Ukrainian populations in the United States here in New Jersey, and it is incumbent upon us to stand aside them. I will tell you that I was actually in Ukraine about a year ago today and had the opportunity to meet not just with students and military leaders, but with refugees, with government members and advocates. These are good people, and they have been invaded. This is a war, and it is really incumbent upon us to stand up for our allies and make sure that we are doing the right thing. And by the way, for anybody who thinks otherwise, it's not that we're just nice. It's not that we are just doing this because we're good people. We are doing this because it is in our cold-blooded self-interest to do so. We have got to protect democracy, and Ukraine is a democracy. It's been overrun, and we have to do everything we can to stand up to them because Putin is a thug.
Thank you very much. Now, Joey Fox, you are up with a question for Tammy Murphy.
Continuing on this thread of foreign policy issues, you're both seeking to replace a senator who has been one of the absolute most critical voices of the current regime in Cuba. So I'm curious whether you think that Senator Menendez's stances on the island are correct, or whether you would rather see the United States start to develop friendly relations towards Cuba and start to loosen sanctions and to form closer bonds there.
We absolutely have to support the Cuban people. The Cuban people are fighting day in and day out for democracy against a brutal dictatorship. And there is no question that we have to sadly maintain the sanctions so that we can put the pressure on and encourage democracy to stand up and support these people. I would say to you that my opponent has actually been a little bit weak, or soft, I should say, on sanctions, and he actually was allowing some agriculture sales, and I think that in that space we need to be very careful because we're playing with people's lives, and they are depending on us to be there for them, and we, America, must be there.
Okay, Andy Kim, you may now respond.
Well, I remember when I first heard about the horrific repression that happened of the protests on July 11th, 2021 in Cuba. It was just a real reminder of the deep challenges that we face and just the repressive regime that is in charge there. So we do have to be very mindful about human rights, about the political prisoners that remain, and we have to be careful about how to approach this going forward. But we have taken some steps that I think are necessary and important for us to be able to think through a comprehensive approach on how to deal with this. I think some of the steps that the Biden administration has taken when it comes to allowing for family reunification, about some level of private sector engagement there, I think these are steps that are going to benefit our strategy going forward to be able to make sure that we understand how best to be able to engage in a country that is right at our doorstep, and one that we have struggled for decades to try to get a handle on. So we got to stand up for the human rights, but we can have some initial levels of engagement to build off of.
We're going to switch it up because time now is for our candidates to ask one another their questions to their opponent. So you each have 30 seconds to ask your question and then 1 minute to answer with a 30-second response. Tammy Murphy, you are asking the first question.
Thank you. So, Congressman, I just having traveled all around the state, affordability is a real challenge, and there is no question that everyone is looking for ways that they might be able to live their version of the American dream. So my question for you is twofold. One, can you just explain to me, because I don't understand why you wouldn't support Medicare for all? And secondarily, can you explain why you did not support President Biden's plan to alleviate the student debt?
Happy to talk about that because I want to make sure that I clarify this. As I said in my previous response, I do support universal health care. I support whether we move forward in a single payer or a multi-payer way. I'm open to those, and I hope that we can pursue that and figure out how best we can get to the universal care that we need. So I think we should be building a wide coalition amongst all of us that seek that universal care and try to figure out how we can get there. Because in the meantime, I've been fighting hard to be able to lower prescription drug costs and take other steps we can do to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. When you talked about the student debt, I support the ability to have student debt relief. What I wanted was something that was codified in Congress, not just another executive order. And I wanted it to be something that isn't just about those that are in school right now, but for future generations, for people that are continuing on going forward. And that's something that I think we should all be able to fight for, to be able to address the high costs in our education, and something that we can make sure that those generations don't have the kind of handcuffs in terms of their financial capabilities going forward. So thanks for the question.
And Tammy Murphy, you have 30 seconds if you choose to use it to respond back.
I guess all I would say is that, yes, we need to look for the future, but after coming out of COVID with isolation, with mental health challenges, with learning loss, there's so many challenges. And these students who have this tremendous amount of debt right now, I just feel like we've got to do both. We've got to find a way to have the Band-Aid here, and we've got to work to the future. And separately, I would just say Medicare for all. I can't say it enough. Healthcare is a right. It's not a privilege, and we have to treat it as such and make sure we're treating everybody equally.
Okay, Andy Kim, you now have an opportunity to ask Tammy Murphy a question, and you have 30 seconds to ask your question.
Yeah, thank you. First Lady, as I said earlier, you've given six-figure donations to Republicans. You voted in Republican primaries through the Obama administration. Earlier in this debate, you talked about it as saying that the Republican Party left you, the current Republican Party left you. But I have to be honest with you, that doesn't sit well with me when I'm trying to think about what your positions are. So I guess my question to you is, if the current Republican Party has left you, what form of the past Republican Party are you still okay with? Is it George W. Bush? Is it George H.W. Bush? Why is it that you haven't changed, but it's instead the Republican Party has left you?
Listen, thank you, Congressman. I would just reiterate what I've been doing for the last 7 or 8 years. And what I have been doing is I've been party building here in New Jersey. When my husband was elected or became the candidate back in 2017, I remember that we both thought that the state party would be a terrific muscle to be able to get out the vote and to really execute on the Democratic agenda. And what did we find? But the state party was really broke. It was like physically broken in tremendous amount of debts. It was working out of a brownstone in Trenton that had enormous amounts of mold, and people were literally taped out of rooms. They couldn't go in them, which was kind of a joke. Anyway, I helped to not only raise the funds to turn it around, but also relocate the party to a new building. We helped bring in leadership. And every year since then, I have shown up and I have turned out, and we've been able to do so much because of the strong party that we have. Everything from voter expansion to paid sick leave to, paid family leave. All of this is because we have a really strong Democratic Party, and I'm proud to be part of it.
Andy Kim, you now have 30 seconds for rebuttal if you so choose.
Yes, I do choose, because that just didn't answer my question. And frankly, it's a question that a lot of Democratic voters are asking right now. I mean, the First Lady donated thousands of dollars to George W. Bush both times, including his re-election. And they had the platform in 2004 that had 3 words in it that said, "We oppose abortion." That she continued to be a member of the Republican Party, voting in the primaries, even years after the Sandy Hook massacre that killed those children in that horrible gun violence. I just don't understand it. And it's something that worries me a lot about her capacity to be able to represent the Democratic Party and New Jersey in the Senate.
Tammy Murphy, I want to give you a 15-second response on that.
Okay, thank you. Listen, I haven't voted for a Republican in a general election in more than 2 decades. And, I've been a Democrat for 10 years. And please, I think you have to know my values are strong. They're Democratic core values. And I am one who's out there every day fighting for our state and making us stronger.
All right, we are going to take a quick break. We also still have some of the guest questions that we're going to work on and bring you those in the second half of this debate. But we want you to stay with us on New Jersey Debate Night between Andy Kim and Tammy Murphy. Stick around as our panelists will dive deeper into the issues facing the country and those here in New Jersey. We're going to be back in about 5 minutes after a look back at some campaign ads from the past. Stay with us.
You're watching On New Jersey.
I'm so excited for our next guest.
The Garden State source for news, sports, talk, and entertainment.
Souk, did you hear what everybody's talking about?
What, Scotty?
The Soukie and Scott show is airing on New Jersey.
First high school basketball, we're in the home stretch.
Join the local movement.
empty. Can't you idiots see that?
Someone will bail us out. They always do.
If someone doesn't fix this right now, people going to jail. Jail, I said, jail!
When Democrats and Republicans fail New Jersey,
this is broken.
It's up to us to take our government back.
Follow me.
Vote independent Chris Daggett for governor, and we can change New Jersey forever.
There's a couple guys down there still need rescuing.
From an escalator?
Find out how you can help at daggettforgovernor.com.
4 years ago, I stood in front of the State House and told you about corruption and indictments in state government, and I said I'd do something about it. That's why I appointed William Highland Attorney General, one of the toughest in the country. I set up a Corruption Control Bureau, and I increased the penalties for official corruption. The verdict on my administration? Not one appointee of the governor has been indicted for corruption in office. It's the first time in 15 years a governor of New Jersey can make that statement.
Jim Florio, tough times, tough decisions. A gutsy brand of leadership. Led a courageous effort to ban assault weapons. Has a career-long commitment to protect the environment. The tough leadership New Jersey needs as it struggles with its economic problems. He's grown into a consensus builder. New Jersey needs his experience and determination. Bright, brave, and passionate. The best choice for New Jersey. Tuesday, Florio, a leader with courage.
Welcome back to New Jersey Debate Night. I'm Laura Jones. We have Democrats Andy Kim and Tammy Murphy in the first New Jersey Senate debate presented by the New Jersey Globe on New Jersey and Rider University. Our panelists this evening are David Wildstein and Joey Fox of the New Jersey Globe and Micah Rasmussen of the Rebovich Institute for New Jersey Politics at Rider University. So we're going to get back into our questions, and I got to tell you, I'm very impressed. Everybody's staying within their time limits. It's going quite well. So we thank you all for all of your respect throughout this debate so far. David Wildstein, I'm going to go over to you. You have the first question of this round, which goes to Tammy Murphy.
Mrs. Murphy, a resolution calling for a Green New Deal has been introduced in the Senate by Ed Markey. It's got 11 co-sponsors, including New Jersey's Cory Booker. If you were in the Senate right now, would you be co-sponsoring this?
Thank you. David, I would just tell you, call it what you want. We have got to deal with climate change urgently. New Jersey is the second most susceptible in the country to sea level rise. And we've seen the disasters from, Hurricane Superstorm Sandy, from Ida, from tremendous loss of life, loss of property. We have got to move on this issue immediately. After Ida, I actually remember going to Irvington and sitting down with a woman, Joan McGee. She lost her husband and her daughter. We have got to start moving in a direction whereby we're not being reactive, because that's what we are right now. Right now, these storms happen, we have property loss or damage, we immediately call FEMA, we try to get insurance, and then what happens? We rebuild. What we have to do is get the Army Corps of Engineers on the ground in New Jersey now, So they're doing a master plan, and we know where are we going to be susceptible to erosion? Where should we be building our schools? Where should we be building our houses? That's what we have to do.
Andy Kim, you have 1 minute for your response.
Thank you. I'm glad that you raised this question because it's right at the top of the list of what I hear about. I share that urgency that those senators feel when it comes to that resolution. And, I've been focused on trying to make sure that we're making the actual progress going forward in terms of the legislation and the bills. I was really proud to be able to support and vote through into law the Inflation Reduction Act. It was the largest investment to fight climate change, not only in our nation's history, but the world's history. And that's something that we're going to continue to press on because I've already started discussions with some of my colleagues about what would be a 2.0. What is it that we still need to get going forward? We've done a lot when it came to the efforts to be able to electrify our transportation sector, to be able to take renewable energies to another level and catalyze our market capabilities and our private sector and innovation to do so. But we have to make sure we're pushing on the gas and be able to get in that next Senate another opportunity to pass a major landmark piece of legislation. That's where I want to focus on so we can deliver and make sure that my kids' generation is able to be able to have the kind of security and lives that they need to.
Okay, thank you for that. Micah Rasmussen, you are next with a question for Andy Kim.
What are American universities getting right and what are they getting wrong as it relates to free speech today?
Well, right now, the main thing that I hear from parents right now scared about their kids is just about safety. I mean, I hear it from the students as well. We need to be able to create an environment where everyone can feel safe. And just, the huge concern that I'm hearing from parents about anti-Semitism in schools, on campuses, and concerns. And look, it's about hate in all forms, about Islamophobia in our country, about anti-Asian hate that we see a rise in all over the place. But it's scary. And I think that there's a lot there that the colleges and universities need to do better at in terms of being able to foster that kind of environment where people can feel safe getting to school, not just the students, but the teachers. The other thing I'll say, though, is that right now the Republicans have been doing their best to try to attack, DEI and going after that left and right. And I see it in terms of the battles that I face in Congress. We do need to make sure we're respecting that diversity, and colleges and universities need to have that deeper conversation, but be able to maintain their strength in fighting back against the Republicans on this.
Tammy Murphy, over to you for your response.
Yeah, I would say that Donald Trump opened Pandora's box, and we have never been able to get that genie back in. We are so disrespectful of one another. We are so unkind, and we don't put ourselves in one another's shoes anymore. We just kind of plow ahead, and we need to find a way to be more respectful. It's one of the reasons why I really would like to go to Washington, because I think that we need more women in the conversation in the Senate. When there are women who join a conversation, you find, and statistics will show this, that enterprises are happier, they're more successful. And I think at this moment in time, if you look at Washington, D.C., you don't see a lot of women yelling at one another. Okay, put Marjorie Taylor Greene aside, but aside from Marjorie Taylor Greene, you really don't see women who are agitated. You see a lot of angry men, and Donald Trump, existential threat, and I would label him with all the challenges we're facing right now.
Okay, Joey Fox, we go next to you, and your question goes to Tammy Murphy.
So President Joe Biden is 81. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is 73. Do you think that there is a broader need for generational change in these high echelons of power in Washington?
Let me just say this. Joe Biden has done so much for our country. He has done so much for our international alliances. And I would tell you that at this moment in time, he has the experience that we need. And I'm firmly behind the president. I think that we have to constantly encourage new people to join our democracy. And my real concern right now is that there is such dysfunction in Washington, D.C., and that everyone feels so disconnected and so lacking in leadership that we are going to find that people are going to actually stop voting. And that is a peril to democracy. Donald Trump, I just want to reiterate what I said in the last segment. Donald Trump is an existential threat to our country. And you know, while I'm talking about Donald Trump, I'm reminded, by the way, that my opponent actually supported one of eight Democrats who supported Donald Trump, not only in enabling him to start building his border wall, but also he supported him in not protecting children and sending children to military bases to be in cages. So there's quite a few things that we have to think about here. But Donald Trump is a real problem, and people who work with Donald Trump are also a problem.
Okay, Andy Kim, over to you for your response.
Yeah, thank you. Let me just start with, that was a very bizarre attack that just came levied after me about a question about generational change. But let me just set the record straight. I stood up against Donald Trump. I ran for Congress to stand up to him. I flipped the House of Representatives. I voted to impeach him twice. I voted numerous times to stop a border wall. And so I just wanted to clarify that. But let me get to the actual question, which wasn't answered, frankly, by my opponent, which is, yes, people want a change. People are hungry right now for a new generation of leadership to step up. And I've been hearing that all over New Jersey. I hear it all over the country. And yes, you know, we want to make sure that we are showing that we're building the bench and having that leadership step up. And it's important because their voice is critical right now more than ever. I would be the 4th youngest senator in the country. I would be the first Asian American elected to the U.S. Senate from the entire East Coast of America. But besides that, I'm somebody that's trying to bring a different perspective, an understanding of what young parents are dealing with, other issues out there that are so critical. So yes, we do want to make sure we're moving in that direction and giving people something to vote for that shows that we are moving forward as a country.
All right, and Joe, you have follow-up on this one.
So you're both welcome to answer this in literally just one word. Do you think that Chuck Schumer should continue to lead the Senate Democratic Caucus? First Lady, you can go first. Sorry, I should have clarified.
I just want to say to Congressman Kim, a vote is a vote, no matter what it is. So that's my opinion there. And yes, he's doing a great job.
Okay, and Mr. Kim, you can go on and answer now.
One word, so that is yes. I'm happy to support.
Okay. All right, we are going to once again go to our guest questions, and we have one from Jaden David, who is a student at Rider University. Jaden is going to ask his question. Hopefully all of the audio will go well on our side. And once that is finished, Mr. Kim, you'll be able to answer first, and then to you, Tammy Murphy. Here we go with Jaden David.
I'm afraid that Donald Trump might be elected president again. In the event that you both win, what will you do in the Senate to respond to his legislative proposals, nominations, and executive branch actions?
Mr. Kim, were you able to hear that?
Yes, I was. And look,
go
I
ahead.
share those concerns deeply. I mean, as I am worried about Donald Trump. He is the reason I stepped up to run for Congress in the first place years back, because he is dangerous. And I've worked in the White House before. I've been in the Situation Room in the Oval Office with President Obama, and it's terrifying. It was terrifying to see President Trump having that power of the White House that I saw with my own eyes. That's why I ran for Congress, and I hope that you see in me someone who is battle-tested and going up against him. I have stood up against him. I stood up against his administration. I voted to impeach him twice in a district that he won twice. So it shows that we can be able to do what is right for the country. But what I also will say is that I won a district Trump won. I outperformed Joe Biden by 8 points. I am someone that shows that I can build an unlikely coalition, try to be the builder rather than the divider. So I will stand up to his legislative attacks if he is president. I will do all of that, but I will also go after and make sure we build a Democratic Party that can take that away from him.
Okay, Tammy Murphy, over to you from our guest questioner.
Yeah, listen, existential threat. Without question, I will do everything in my power to push back. I will tell you again that despite what the congressman says, he is one of only 8 Democrats who has voted to help Donald Trump in several situations. First of all, he used disaster relief funds he voted to use disaster relief funds to build the wall. Secondarily, he voted to use DOD funds to reimburse Trump properties for expenses that were accrued. He's not been supportive of, as I said, of children who were being sent to military bases to go into cages. And on top of that, during the COVID crisis, he did not support our undocumented immigrants by helping to give them rental aid assistance. So this is a man who has not proven that he will stand up to Donald Trump, and I can assure you that I absolutely will.
Andy Kim, we're going to give you 30 seconds for a response to that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for giving me that time to respond, because again, it just these attacks upon my record, people know what my record is. We've talked about in terms of standing up to Trump, and we talked about how I voted, have a 100% record in terms of voting along with President Biden, being able to support what we're doing. So that's my record. And let me just say, I want to address an attack that she did against me a couple questions ago, where she was attacking me for having worked as a career federal government employee. Yes, I've worked under presidents of both parties. I was a federal government employee. That's what public service is. It's about serving the country, not the president. Don't accuse our military or our public servants of being partisans when we are working nonpartisan jobs.
All right, we're going to go back to that first guest question again, and it comes from Amal Sina, the Executive Director of the ACLU of New Jersey. Tammy Murphy, you will be able to respond first to this question.
We've witnessed an alarming rise in anti-immigrant rhetoric and policy by both Democratic and Republican politicians. Some proposals would limit the rights of asylum seekers and seek deportations without due process. If you were elected, what would you do to protect immigrant families? And would you be willing to push back on members of your own party, including President Biden, if they supported anti-immigrant measures?
Tammy Murphy,
thank you so much. Yes, thank you. So listen, we live in New Jersey. We pass Ellis Island and the Statue of Liberty on a daily basis, and we are reminded that we are a country of immigrants, and we must treat each other with respect. I will tell you that my mother was a first-generation immigrant to this country. My father's family escaped the pogroms and came here in the 1800s. I think about these things all the time, and it really does impact how I view our world. Certainly on immigration, we have to secure our border. There's no question. We must find comprehensive immigration reform and give a path to citizenship at long last for our dreamers, for the agriculture workers, for the construction workers. These people are not bad people. These people are people who are fleeing their homes because they have to. They have no choice. They're either being persecuted or they have no way to support their families. They're putting their families in peril to travel to the United States. They want to be part of the American dream, and they would like to give back. So I think we should find a way to make sure that we are supporting them and move forward together.
Okay, Andy Kim, now over to you from that guest question.
I'm glad that this question came up because it needs to be talked about more. The Democratic Party and look, frankly, our campaigns, we need to talk about immigration more. I'm a son of immigrants, married to an immigrant. This is deeply personal in so many ways, but I'll be honest, that doesn't necessarily give me a perfect clarity in all the different challenges that different immigrants are facing. So I've gone out and talked to them and hear the struggles that they're facing. And you're right, we need to make sure that the Democratic Party does not take on board the vocabulary of Trump and the Republicans. I'll be honest, I had trouble when I heard President Biden say things like, give me the authority to shut the border down. We have to make sure we don't give in to the cruelty of Trump, that we're never going to out the MAGA Republicans. We can find a way for an orderly system that engages and has more federal immigration judges and other things like that, while we are also continuing to preserve the dignity and decency of human beings, and we can continue to be a country that embraces our immigration and embraces our immigrants. So that's something that I hope to be able to work with, and I'll stand up to my party if needed.
And we have another guest question. This one is coming from Sophia Barrio, a student at Rider University. After this question, Mr. Kim, you get the first response.
Hello, my question is, what can you do in the Senate to help students and graduates with crippling student debt?
Oh, well, look, what I'll say, and look, this is, again, at the forefront of so many minds right now. And I understand the challenges that are there. My wife and I, we made major decisions about our lives dealing with the amount of student debt that we had, whether that was when to buy a car, when to have kids, when to get married. It was really a struggle, and so many are facing that now. We can take some immediate steps to be able to do this, making sure that we have increased Pell Grants. As someone who received Pell Grants when I was younger, this is not kept up. with the challenges we face. We should be able to drop student loan percentages as low to zero as possible. We should not be able to get a loan for a car at a lower percentage than a student loan. We should not be trying to make money off the backs of our students. These are steps that we should be able to take. But look, we want to make sure we can have that student debt relief, the forgiveness. I supported Biden in those efforts. I hope that we can codify that into law so we don't have another president just get rid of these executive orders. So let's try to make sure we can codify that and move forward in a permanent way.
Okay. And Tammy Murphy, over to you on student debt.
Yeah, listen, my opponent and the Republican extreme side has really pushed back on President Biden and his student debt plan. I would not have done that. As I said before, that might be a Band-Aid for now, but what we have done to these students is we have encouraged them to make the most of their lives and to try and be as marketable as they can so they go to college and then they come out on the other side and they are absolutely burdened with debt that they cannot overcome. We have got to give them a lifeline immediately. So I would do both. I would both extend forgiveness for the college debt that's existing on the one hand. I would separately do something that we've done in New Jersey, where we have made community colleges far more accessible, and that should be done on a nationwide basis for certain. And then there's another idea I've been toying with. It's not fully formulated, but I do think maybe there is a way in the future that we can give a tax break to families who are paying for their children to go to college, or for students who are paying for themselves to go to college. But either way, we have to do what it takes. We have to stand up for these students and make sure that everybody is able to pursue whatever their version of the American dream might be. And if that's going to college, then help them on the other side.
Okay, yeah, and I will give Andy Kim a moment for rebuttal there.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, look, what I'll say is that we absolutely need to make sure that we're addressing this issue. It's at the top of mind of so many, and it's affecting not just their education, but their ability to be able to get onward jobs, about the concerns about housing. So yes, I supported that. What I was just trying to do is make sure that the president can work with us in Congress to try to actually pass a piece of legislation that can move this forward by power of law, and I hope that we can continue to do that, and I'll be ready to support from the Senate to be able to make sure we get that through and provide relief to so many young Americans right now.
We're going to switch back now to our panel and David Wildstein. He has a question for Tammy Murphy.
Mrs. Murphy, last year the Surgeon General issued a public health advisory warning that some social media platforms put people, especially younger Americans, at a greater risk for depression. The CDC has said that the suicide risk among teenage girls has increased dramatically just in the last couple of years. Do you have a plan to combat that? And should tech companies be held accountable for what's happening on their platforms?
Yeah, listen, it's interesting because there is so much, and when you hear kind of tech and AI, I think people look at one of two directions. Either they're really enthusiastic. For example, a surgeon I met at Monmouth Medical Center was talking to me about all of the great strides that would be able to be made if they had access to AI, or people look at perhaps job loss on the other side. With tech specifically, I think a lot about Congressman Cheryl and her deepfake porn bill that she's been working on. We all saw what happened in Westfield High School, and that is absolutely unacceptable. The EU has some great, some very, very stringent standards that they have just passed, and I think that instead of reinventing the wheel, we absolutely should adopt some of those measures here in the United States. But I think that there's a lot we can do, and I'm looking forward to leaning in on this space. But we have to monitor, and we have to take care of the mental health of our kids.
Okay, Andy Kim, over to you for your response.
We have an absolute mental health crisis as a nation right now, and that is something where we have not wrapped our heads around that enough to be able to tackle it with the intensity and the velocity that is needed. In particular, when it comes to young Americans, our kids, our students, the principals and the teachers that I talk to, this is the top thing that they're talking about in terms of the mental health crisis. Hearing about middle schoolers that are having suicidal ideation. A lot of this is something that we are deeply ill-prepared for. So we need to make sure that we're pushing forward, both in terms of just making sure we're addressing the mental health crisis that we're facing, get the number of mental health providers up, because we don't even have enough to be able to tackle this issue right now, be able to help our schools be able to prepare for it at a time when a lot of schools don't even have full-time nurses. We got to make sure we have the facilities that are there. But yes, we go after as well on the tech side, go into the algorithms, talk about how a lot of these tech companies are pushing this type of extreme type of images and videos and other things like that are really affecting the mental health of young Americans. So we absolutely need to push forward on that, and we have legislation that's trying to do so.
Okay, Micah Rasmussen, we go over to you, and you have a question next for Andy Kim.
We've seen some accountability this week for Donald Trump's corporate malfeasance, but he's hardly alone. First Energy, the parent company of JCP&L, also saw its former CEO and other executives indicted for a staggering amount of bribery in exchange for rate increases. Are these corporate crimes isolated, or are they part of a wider problem? What prevents us from ever learning about them in the first place, and what can be done about it?
We need to have a lot more transparency and accountability in that process. So yes, we want to make sure that we have those tools available so we can understand how widespread this is. But this is clearly something that's more than just isolated incidents. This is something that's deeper to the core. And what we've seen, for instance, in terms of the actions of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB, they have seen a lot and uncovered a lot by shining that light on that and being able to deliver billions of dollars in returns back to the American people. But in terms of predatory actions that are happening, but also the corruption that we see on top of that. So those are the types of things that we absolutely want to make sure that we are shining that light on, that we cannot have that culture of corruption in our government. We cannot have it in our private sector, because that is undermining our country. It's undermining our markets. It's undermining the trust that consumers and, frankly, just citizens have in these incredibly important institutions. So I'm glad that we can try to shine a light on that, and I will continue to be someone to do so from the United States Senate.
Tammy Murphy, over to you.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I mean, listen, clearly we need to have transparency. Clearly we need to have reforms. I'm not willing to blanketly say that there are many people and corporations who are doing the wrong thing. What I would say, though, is we have to be very careful. There are powers that would like to dismantle our government right now and take away the ability for our government to pursue, people who are polluting our waterways and taking away the ability for the government to generally serve in the role that we're all looking for the government to provide, which is keeping us safe and allowing us each and every one of us to simply live our lives, productive lives in our communities. I would just tell you as well that we have to, as a country and as a world, we have to find a way to bridge divides. We have to come together. We are so divided, and it's really unacceptable. We have to really find a way to trust, to put ourselves in other people's shoes. Transparency and reform is important, but we also have to be open-minded and not assume everybody's a bad guy.
And we go over to Joey Fox now, who has this next question for Tammy Murphy.
Mrs. Murphy, your campaign is being supported by a super PAC called Garden State Integrity. So putting aside the realities of the law as it exists and the way that campaigns really work, in your ideal world, would super PACs like that be allowed to exist? And what regulations would you like to see put on them?
The amount of money in politics is really disgusting. I will be the first to say that. We need to overturn Citizens United. I can't say it any more clearly than that. The problem that we have, I'm going to anticipate your next question, Joey, is if that's the case, then why are we all raising money and trying to participate at this level? The challenge is that if we don't do this, then the other side is going to have access to all of the Supreme Court, to all of our justices, to all of our elected officials, and we can't have that. We are fighting within the system we have, and I know people are sick and tired of the situation. I personally am as well. And I think of all the good we could do with a lot of the funds that we have to raise in political circles right now. So we need to get rid of Citizens United. And that's my biggest moment. And I think if we could go back and do that at the federal level, we'd all be in a much better place.
Okay, Andy Kim, your response.
Well, I agree with the First Lady Tammy Murphy about ending Citizens United. That is something that has unleashed an incredible amount of damage upon our democracy. Where I disagree, though, is saying that, look, there are still ways that we as candidates can try to maintain our ability to show the American people and our hopeful constituents that we're different. For instance, I'm someone that from the very beginning of my first campaign said, I'm not going to take corporate PAC money. I'm not going to get funded by corporations. And that's something I held true to. And I get it. I'm one of only a few people in Congress that has held to that. But I believe it's important for people to know who I'm fighting for. So for 7 years, I have not taken a dime of corporate PAC money. Whereas the First Lady, just in her first few weeks, has already taken corporate PAC money in her very first campaign. So again, it just shows a difference in our approaches. We're running two very different campaigns, but I think we have two very different visions about how we can try to proceed to be able to tackle this issue of corporate special interests and other problems in our politics.
And Tammy Murphy, I'll give you time to respond to that.
Listen, I cannot be more clear with you. We are all struggling within the system that we have. Do I wish the system was different? I wish the system was different. It is not. So we all work within the confines of what we have today. And I haven't personally taken a dime of a super PAC, and I'm not planning to do so.
All right, we have time now for our last guest question of the evening, and that is coming from Kamala Baishad, also of Rider University. And Andy Kim, you will be able to respond first to this question.
This is going to be my first presidential or Senate election that I am able to participate in, and some of my main concerns are what you will do to promote economic mobility, income equality, and being able to find a decent place to live. My generation does not love the fact that we will have to be Andy Kim's age to be able to afford a decent first home.
Andy Kim, to you.
I have to say it's really at the top of the list. I think it's the number one issue that I've heard about on this campaign trail about just affordability and the challenges, especially from younger Americans who, as we talked about, the sheer amount of student debt that many are carrying, and then just the challenges of just outrageously high rental costs, housing prices right now. I talked to young people, a young student told me, so scared that they're ever going to be able to afford a house. I've supported legislation to be able to make sure that we can have support and financial support for first-time home buyers, to be able to make sure we're providing rental assistance, and those are things that are necessary. But we also want to make sure we're addressing the fundamental issues about economic inequality. We live in the time of the greatest amount of inequality in our nation's history, and we have to be able to fight back against that. So the steps that we're talking about taxes, about healthcare reform, other things like that are vital to that effort to make sure that our students, like the one who just asked the question, can be able to have greater opportunities going forward.
And over to you, Tammy Murphy.
Yeah, listen, affordability, we live in an incredibly expensive state. I mean, we get a lot back for that, but it doesn't make anyone feel good. The affordability issue comes up in everything from housing to childcare to prescription drug prices, and we need to push back on all of the above. And obviously, we've already spoken about college affordability. The first thing I would do, should I be in the Senate, is I would absolutely make sure that the SALT deductions we unleash the SALT deductions first and foremost. Secondarily, I would tell you that there should be some ways that we can bring money in, again, for college affordability. We need to work on advancing the Inflation Reduction Act and make sure that we are expanding that for the caps for everybody in our society. But I think that we've got to get more grants out of HUD for housing. We've got to make sure that hedge funds can't buy homes, single-family homes in New Jersey, because they're pricing people out of the market. There's so many things to do. I need to have a longer conversation with you.
Okay, Micah Rasmussen, the last question is going to you for Tammy Murphy first and then to Andy Kim.
It's a state tradition to complain about how much we send to Washington versus how much we get back. In fact, I thought you might even be going there a moment ago. Talk about moocher states is just the latest example. But the federal income tax is progressive, and most federal assistance is income-based. So is what we send and get back from Washington fair after all? Or how should the tax burden be balanced differently?
Sorry, I'm starting, right?
Yeah, Tammy
Okay.
Murphy, you go first, correct.
Okay, so listen, the burden on the middle class, on our seniors, we all see this, and everybody's getting squeezed here in New Jersey. Again, Micah, what I would say is we really have to reverse the SALT cap, which has got to be job number one. Secondarily, I would say everything that I was talking about, from housing to childcare. I met this woman the other day, her name is Kristen. She's working 2 jobs right now to send her one child off to childcare for 3 days a week. It's crazy. It costs $1,400 a month. We've got to find ways that we can make life more sustainable here in New Jersey. And I think we can. We need someone who's going to fight for all of our funds, whether it's bringing back transit funds or housing funds or infrastructure funds or funds with healthcare. I mean, there's many ways that we can tackle this, and I'm really looking forward to doing just that.
I don't think I've ever had 2 candidates stay as close to on time as possible. I mean, I even had a bell and everything ready to go, but you all stayed right on time. We've run out of time for our panelist questions and our guest questions. So, I'm so sorry. Andy can answer. Andy, my apologies.
Yeah, happy to. But I'm not going to give you a chance to be able to ring that bell. But
darn it.
But look, what I'll say is that I agree with the First Lady on this one. We need to make sure we're standing up to get what's fair back to New Jersey, and I'm sure that both of us would fight hard to be able to do so. I've been fighting hard when it comes to I helped pass the infrastructure law. We got to make sure we're getting our fair share back. We got to make sure we're keeping our promise to get rid of every single lead pipe in any home here in New Jersey, that we have the kind of investment into universal broadband that we promised our constituents. So at the legislative level, we are absolutely going to hold feet to the fire to the Biden administration, any administration, to be able to make sure we're getting our fair share back. On top of that, I know I'm a little biased, but I run what I believe to be the strongest constituent service operation in the country. And kudos to my team. We've been able to get tens of millions of dollars back to our constituents when it comes to veterans or Social Security or Medicare. So we're going to use every tool at our disposal, and I would love to run the best operation for the state of New Jersey to be able to do that.
All right. I got a little ahead of myself there, but we were glad that you were able to get that word in. And I want to thank David, Micah, and Joey for all of your thought-provoking questions. And we got to a lot of issues. And as the debate is winding down now, it's time to go to closing statements. And we're going to start with Andy Kim. Now, that order was also determined by the coin toss conducted earlier. Each candidate has 90 seconds for their closing statements. Mr. Kim, to you first.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for organizing this all. And thank you, everyone, for paying attention and for watching. I know we've talked through a lot of different issues. There are a lot of challenges that we face right now as a country. And sometimes it can feel overwhelming. I feel it too. Sometimes it feels like things are just spinning out of control in this country and in this world right now. And sometimes I feel this, this anxiety. I feel this pressure and this weight upon me as I wonder, what we can try to do as parents to be able to give our kids a better life. On the toughest day that I had in my time in Congress so far was January 6th. And I remember the difficulty I had coming back to my family and trying to explain to my kids what had happened and why we saw Americans fighting other Americans in the United States Capitol. But what I tried to learn from that experience, what I try to convey is that it doesn't have to be this way, that we can choose a different path. And I've been saying this line a lot lately where I say, I believe that the opposite of democracy is apathy. We cannot give in to the helplessness and that feeling of apathy. We have to fight and stay engaged. So the question is, what motivates us? What pushes us to do that? I call that our North Star. For me, you heard me, what my North Star is. My North Star are my kids. I will fight and do everything possible for my kids. I ask you all to think about your North Star. What is it that you think about the moment you wake up. What is it, the last thing you worry about at the end of your day? Let us fight for that. Have that be what's in your mind when you think about who to vote for. And I hope that I can earn your support, and I humbly ask for your vote to be the next senator from New Jersey. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kim. Mrs. Murphy, you have 90 seconds for your closing statements.
Listen, I would just say to you that I have spent my life working in public service for others, and giving back to community has been at the heart and soul of my being. And I have done that over the course of time with a number of different organizations, with institutions in different ways. I really feel so passionately that the world is not going in the right place for the next generation. And we need a change. We need people who actually are not looking at this as a career. We need people who are looking at this, who are going to come in and who are unafraid. I am unafraid to take on those big challenges. Give me the gun lobby. I'll take them on. I was with Mark Kelly and Gabby Giffords last Saturday in Washington, D.C., and we talked a little bit about guns legislation and what the realm of the possible was and could be for our world. I think all the time about the people I've met around our state where affordability is a challenge. I met Jose in Warren, who said that he's a vet and he can't even figure out how to get to the VA hospital. We've got so many things and so many people who are looking for a new path forward. And I will just tell you, I may not have a track record in Washington, but I would tell you the last thing Washington needs right now is more of Washington, D.C. And my opponent has sided with the Trump administration and with the Republicans so many times. Please check his record out if you don't believe me. But in the interim, I want to say, please join me, TammyMurphyForSenate.com. And I want to say to all of the panelists and everybody here, this was fun, and I hope that we can do it again. Thank you.
And that is going to conclude New Jersey Debate Night. I would like to thank the candidates Tammy Murphy and Andy Kim for their time and their responses. Thank you to our panelists, David Wildstein, Micah Rasmussen, and Joey Fox. Thank you also to the New Jersey Globe on New Jersey and the Rebovich Institute for New Jersey Politics at Rider University for producing this debate, and to C-SPAN for airing the debate as well. We invite you to stay tuned because immediately following the debate, we're going to have a conversation with our panelists to talk more about this debate, to get their reaction and insight. I'm Laura Jones. Remember, primary election day in New Jersey is June 4th. Head over to onnewjersey.com if you'd like to see the debate again. We thank you for watching. Welcome back. I'm Laura Jones, and for the past 90 minutes, Andy Kim and Tammy Murphy took center stage in the first New Jersey Senate debate, sponsored by On New Jersey, the New Jersey Globe, and the Rebovich Institute for New Jersey Politics at Rider University. Our panel is here to talk a little bit more about the debate, and we have David Wildstein, Joey Fox, they're both with the New Jersey Globe, and Micah Rasmussen is from Rider University. So, gentlemen, let's talk to it. Joey, I'm going to go to you first. As a reporter, if you're writing this for tomorrow's headlines, what are you going with? What's your lead that came out of this debate?
I mean, I think that this debate, not to be overly equivocal, but I think this debate sort of confirmed that these are two serious candidates running for office, confirmed that they are two candidates who are running as progressive Democrats, and confirmed that there are two candidates who have significantly more differences on campaign-related issues and process issues than they do on policy issues. I mean, I think we asked a lot of different policy questions about a lot of different subjects, and there were relatively few cases in which the two candidates had very clearly differing views and said, this is how I would behave differently in the Senate. Instead, the real differences came about in terms of this is how I'm running my campaign, or this is the votes that my opponent has taken, or this is the party registration that my opponent once held. So I think that if you've already been following this race for months the way that we have, nothing that came about in this debate is necessarily surprising, because I think that that's already been how the campaign has been run, and this furthered that. This put that before a national audience, and we'll see how they react.
Yeah, definitely some of the most respectful people I've seen during a campaign. Micah, let me take it over to you. What do you think the buzz is going to be around the water cooler tomorrow? Or what do you think might be, trending on social media for those who watch this debate, those who are following this campaign?
I think what a great job Laura did moderating. Clearly,
I didn't even use my bell. I was ready to go to cut them off, and I didn't get to use that.
Yeah, but what a smooth debate! What a well-moderated debate it was, right?
Thank you.
I think two things. I think we clearly saw sort of previews of what media is going to look like, ads are going to look like. I don't think it was any great mystery that you heard Tammy Murphy talk about these Trump votes again and again. And so I think we're going to, she said, I encourage you to check them out. I think it's pretty clear that she was previewing her ads. And I think for Andy Kim, the big takeaway and what you're going to hear more about is her record as a Republican. So I think we sort of got a glimpse of what both campaigns are coming out guns a-blazing and what their main line of offense is going to be.
Yeah, David, I want to go over to you. And as somebody who has known and covered these people for a very long time, was there anything that surprised you about this debate or made you take pause?
Well, one of the things is how civil this was, and my takeaway is these two, they may disagree their opponents, but they didn't come across as candidates who hate each other. Andy Kim backed Phil Murphy for governor twice. Tammy Murphy campaigned for Andy Kim the first time he ran, supported him twice. I was a little surprised in that a race that everybody thinks is going to be is hugely competitive, that there weren't more punches thrown. Maybe this is New Jersey making a turn for the better, but I thought it was going to be less civil than it was today.
Yeah, and we were able to cover a range of topics. And, we said even before the debate started, any one of these topics you could really take and dedicate an entire show to. So, Joey, let me ask you again, because, we had 90 minutes. We wanted to make sure we got in as much content as possible. Was there anything that you would really like to go back on, or that you would like to hear a little bit more, or hear them tease it out a little bit more? Because, again, they are very similar in where they stand on the issues. It's more about, running the campaign where they differ. But any particular topics that you would like to dive into a little bit more deeply with them?
Yeah, I mean, so there were a few questions that I asked about it's about like the filibuster and about gun control and about abortion. And I phrased all three of those questions in a very specific way, where it was sort of, beyond your positions on this issue, what would you actually want to do as a senator? And that's really hard for someone who's not currently a senator to necessarily answer. I mean, and obviously campaigns are very independent from how people end up actually behaving in office. They're two fundamentally different tasks that politicians have to accomplish both of. But I think that on these issues where the two candidates are not going to be saying anything different policy-wise, because they are both candidates who support, more access to abortion and stricter gun control laws, and that's not exactly a surprise. I think that neither of them specifically spelled out any differences in terms of how they necessarily act in the Senate on those issues either. And I think that might be something that New Jerseyans will be interested in seeing one of them will likely win, and then they will actually get to see this, is how they will actually work as a senator, how they will work to implement these issues that right now they're just sort of talking about in a vacuum.
Yeah. We had a number of questions from guest questioners, and Micah, I'll go to you because we had a few students from Rider University. And, you know, as somebody who has worked in government and somebody who also now teaches at Rider and interacts with these students, you know, what are young people saying? Do you see them being a little bit more engaged in campaigns and paying attention to what's going on? And how do you think that they approached their answers to these younger people, these students?
I was really proud of my students who participated. I was thrilled that they had a chance to participate. I'm so glad we could work them in to the debate. I think it added a great dimension. And I'll tell you, they're not concerned about the blow by blow. They're not as into the blow by blow. I'll tell you, they're really not even really as much caught up in terms of partisanship. They are concerned about the future. They're concerned about a system that they don't know if they have an even chance in. And so they're looking for answers that are not so much combative. They're looking for, how do we make things better? How do we go forward? What are the solutions? Have these candidates thought about how they can make things better, what they want to do in this job to make it better? And so, you know, I think that's what they're going to be listening for tonight.
Yeah. So, David, moving forward, can you talk us through a little bit about what's coming up on the horizon, right? This is the first debate. Last weekend, there was the Monmouth County Convention. So can you talk a little bit about what's going on between these two candidates and what we might be able to expect to see, and maybe what even voters, viewers should be looking out for in the days and weeks ahead as we count down? How many days did you say it was until the New Jersey primary election?
107 days from tonight.
Yeah.
So what we have coming up is next weekend, a meeting of the Burlington County Democrats, and there's some speculation about maybe a compromise and a peace treaty, certainly more in the 3rd Congressional District. But Burlington is Andy Kim country. He's expected to win there. And then you go into Hunterdon on Sunday, and Hunterdon County is, it's a county where Democratic committee persons make their own decisions. There's no boss there. It's a Republican county, and they're going to make their own call. They might be influenced by the floor speeches of what happens that day. And I think Hunterdon will then lead into some of these other counties that are competitive. I'll tell you though, Laura, a couple things that I also noticed tonight. I thought it was interesting that First Lady Murphy did not distance herself from her husband on New Jersey Transit fare increases. And Andy Kim came out strongly against the plan. So we see that. I think you might hear more about that over the next weeks. I think both of the candidates were on the Israel question, maybe trying to play to all constituencies a little bit more. One thing that was clear is that there is nobody in this race who is going to be as pro-Israel as Bob Menendez was. So I think we're looking at a different shift there. And I think the other point that I found interesting is this race has been framed as Tammy Murphy is the liberal Democrat and Andy Kim is the progressive Democrat. But on one of the core issues for progressives, Tammy Murphy came out in favor of Medicare for all, and Andy Kim didn't. So I think you'll see some of these issues play out as they go to the establishment meetings of Democratic county committees to award the lines.
Yeah, and I was actually just looking through my notes to try and see who was the one asking the question, because Governor Murphy's budget address is going to be coming up, and he has talked about raising tolls, commuting prices, increasing, and that no doubt is going to have an effect, for better or worse, on Tammy Murphy. Micah, was it you or Joey who was asking about that and how if she would oppose or distance herself from her own husband's policies?
Yeah, when constituents ask her to oppose it. That's right.
Right. Yeah. Well, what did you think about how she handled that?
I would have liked I mean, I think we did get an answer. The answer was,
right. Yeah.
The answer was she didn't really articulate that she would oppose it. So I think we can infer much about that, right? So I think for the 2 years in which we would have a Murphy in the governor's office and a Murphy in the Senate, we might get more agreement than we might get disagreement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Laura, I'm sorry to do this, but keeping my academic hat on for 1 second, I hope you won't mind. I can't leave watchers with the impression that the filibuster started in 1917. The filibuster actually started in 1789, the very first filibuster. There was a very famous one against Andrew Jackson, a censure against him. So what started in 1917 was the vote of cloture, but the filibuster has been with us from the beginning.
Okay, so you've got all the history there. You know that at the drop of
he was there.
He was there. He was there. Right.
You were not.
No. Joey, again, we've got just a few minutes left here. As you continue yourself covering these candidacies and the campaigns, is there anything that you really think that you're going to be focusing on, or issues that you want to really hold their feet to the fire to, again, try and find out where are they? Will there be issues what they really do start to separate themselves to give voters a choice, as opposed to, just looking at the behind the scenes issues regarding lines and how the process works, how it may or may not benefit Tammy Murphy. And it's the same system that actually benefited Andy Kim. What do you think?
I mean, so one thing I'll be watching for in the coming months, down here in Washington is, and this is maybe a little bit of an unfair standard, but is Andy Kim's voting record. Tammy Murphy does not have a voting record and will not have one unless she is elected to the Senate. So that gives her a pass in some ways. She has not had to take very definitive stances on issues. As you saw in tonight's debate, Andy Kim has. He has taken hundreds of votes over his 5 and a little bit years in Congress. And I mean, I feel like I should say that the votes that Tammy Murphy was bringing up about immigration and about the border wall, those are relatively minor votes. One of them was literally a procedural vote on, I can't remember the exact details, but it was basically a procedural vote on whether to continue with the bill as amended or not. That's the kind of thing that when you're in Congress for a long time, you start opening yourself up to that kind of attack, because you just have a really long voting record. And if there's certain things that can look bad in very certain ways. And so, in these coming months, Andy Kim is going to be running for Senate. He's also going to continue to be a congressman. And I'll be really curious to see. He's definitely, he's always had a pretty liberal voting record. I think he definitely has one now as a Senate candidate. And I'll be interested to see that going forward. We won't be able to have the same comparison with Tammy Murphy, but, we can still track her issue statements. We can still track what exactly she is saying about her own stances and about Andy Kim's votes.
Well, I'm glad you brought up, as he is still a current member of the Congress, Bob Menendez is still a member of the U.S. Senate. So I want to close out by saying we did invite Bob Menendez to participate contingent upon him being a candidate. We never heard back from him. So how do you think his candidacy, his lack of candidacy, his trial, which is set to begin on May 6th, I believe it is, first part of May, how that plays into this? It's the whole reason that we're in this position in the first place is because he's been indicted. David, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, well, I don't think Bob Menendez is running for Senate. Maybe he'll flirt openly with an independent run just to keep this going. Filing day is March 25th. He's already missed a couple conventions. He passed up a chance to debate tonight and have his thoughts known. I don't think he's really running. And I think what you're seeing now is this two-person race. Andy Kim played to his strength tonight, which is his authenticity, his just natural ability to connect with voters as a politician who just comes across as a decent human being. Tammy Murphy's job tonight was to introduce herself. This is her first debate. She's never done this before. Her job was to show that she has policy chops, that she is ready to talk about tough issues going on. That's going to be up to Democratic primary voters over the next 107 days to make this very difficult decision about who they want to be their candidate.
Yeah. Micah, let me get your thoughts on the impression, again, as David mentioned, Tammy Murphy's first opportunity to introduce herself in this format, and also how the Menendez factor plays into this campaign.
Well, I agree with you on the timing, Laura, that if this trial does take place and unfold over the months of May and potentially June, it's going to be forefront on everyone's minds come primary election day at the beginning of June. And in that sense, I guess you might think that the reformer in the race might benefit from that. It's not to say that Tammy Murphy won't be anti-Menendez. I feel like she hedges a little bit. She's critical, but not openly critical. But somebody who's really running against the system, like Andy Kim, could potentially benefit from that. It could be, look, I said very early on that his jumping in headfirst into the Senate race reminded me of the way he jumped headfirst into cleaning up after January 6th. And so, if that's what he can portray for himself as this trial is going on, I think it could potentially be a benefit for him.
Okay, Joey, I will give you the final word as we look to Tammy Murphy's impression that she made, again, first time participating in a debate, and also the Menendez factor, and just closing thoughts from you.
I mean, so I think that the day that the Menendez indictment came down in September, New Jersey politics, this is kind of cliche to say at this point, but New Jersey politics was upended. It was an earthquake. And one of the factors of that earthquake is that voters are paying really close attention in a way that they really have not been in many previous elections, in many previous, just the sort of inside baseball of politics that oftentimes flies over the average voter's head, because why exactly would they care about something like a county line or whatever it may be? I think that in the polls immediately following the indictment, you saw that a crazy percentage of voters had heard about it, and a crazy percentage of voters had formed negative opinions of Bob Menendez because of it. And as we look at this trial schedule, and as we look at the fact that there's going to be, at least scheduled to be, this blockbuster trial happening in the month exactly leading up to the primary, that just tells me, this current wave of voter interest and enthusiasm is probably not going to die down. This is the most exciting year in New Jersey politics in a long time. It's certainly the most exciting primary cycle. The Senate race is drawing money and voter interest in a way that we have not seen in a long time. And Menendez will continue to play a part in that. Not the part that he wanted to play, of course, but this is going to be a race unlike any other. And that trial is only going to really accentuate that. When that's coming down, when that's on every voter's TV, it's going to be something that we've never seen before.
Yeah, which is something in New Jersey, because New Jersey always seems to outdo itself. Just when you think, no, it can't get any better than this, New Jersey goes and New Jersey's itself. Gentlemen, I had a great time with you all tonight, and I really appreciate your time, this first U.S. Senate debate. I'm looking forward to working with you all more and having more conversations like this with the candidates, more debates coming up. David, Micah, Joey, thank you for participating, and thank you all for sticking around for your insight and analysis. I'm Laura Jones, and we thank all of you for watching New Jersey Date Night. Debate night. It's a date night. Debate night. Thanks again for watching.